ROCpodcasts.com.
This is an SOS distress call from the mining ship Red Dwarf. The crew is dead, killed by a radiation leak. Luckily, video records of the survivors' attempts to return to Earth still exist. These blokes, Brent and Paul, are ready to tell you all about them. You're listening to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. Stand by for comment and analysis on your favorite episodes of Red Dwarf.
Good, Benny.
Featuring
Boys from the Dwarf,
Brent Johnson,
hey smaghead,
and Paul Towsley.
Better make myself look big.
And now, from the drive room, the boys from the Dwarf.
Look out there! The slime's coming home!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. I'm Brent.
And I'm Paul, and this is our second episode where we'll be discussing Series 2 of Red Dwarf, which aired from September 6th through October 11th, 1988. The stories in this season are
Crichton, Better Than Life, Thanks for the Memory, Stasis Leak, Queeg, and Parallel Universe. So, Paul, before we get started, what you been up to this past month?
One of the cool things I did this month was play bass in a show of Peter Pan, which is another beloved English property that seems to have disseminated around the entire world. And it's just kind of fun to see some of the little British things that go into that and stuff like that. So I had a good time playing for that show. It was a community theater show, but they still did all the flying and all of the special effects and laser pointer Tinkerbell and all that kind of stuff. So I had a good time. And I've been podcasting like a madman too. So it's been fun trying to get the word out about Tongue Tied, keeping Towsley TARDIS up and running, and doing some Paul Towsley shows too. What have you been up to?
Lots of different things. We had a Super Bowl party here at the house, so that was pretty cool. Went to see Billy Joel in Raleigh here last Sunday. That was awesome. I've seen him. The only other time I've seen him was with Elton John. They came by together in Winston-Salem, 10 years ago or so.
Man, that must have been a hell of a show.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. But Billy by himself was really good. He was, he's getting on up there. He's 64, and I thought he'd be a little less energetic, but no. He was hitting every note and jumping all over the stage and everything. It was awesome.
Now, I heard that Billy Joel is going to be in residence at Madison Square Garden, and he's going to be playing shows on a regular basis there, and he's going to keep playing until he doesn't sell out anymore. So that's a really cool opportunity for a musician to be in residence at one of the largest venues here in the States.
That's really cool.
It is. Now, another thing you put up, I think your wife gave you a scrapbook for your birthday, or was it for Valentine's Day?
It was for Valentine's Day. She bought me a couple of scrapbooks for concert tickets, and each book holds 96 shows, and I filled the first one up. Well, she filled the first one up. She went through and found all of my old concert tickets up through like the early 2000s, and she didn't know where the rest of them were.
So they were stashed away.
Yeah, so she put them all together, put them in order. I mean, that was just a really cool gift. It was awesome. I was like, how many Poison tickets did you see? She was like, my God. She said, you've seen Poison like 10 or 15 times. I was like, yeah, and the Black Crowes. So
that shows the difference in our age a little bit here, because I think when Poison and Black Crowes were out touring, I think I was probably a little bit too young to go and see concerts quite still. So who knows? Yeah, that's cool though. Anything else of highlight in the last year as far as concerts that you've been to?
Concerts. Not as much as I used to. She was like, "Do you realize how many shows you saw in 91?" I was like, "No." She was like, "You went like," it seemed like almost every day. But I was like, "Did you see the prices on those shows?" She was like, "Oh yeah."
Right.
Because I mean, that's it. I mean, people charge so much for concert these days. It's hard to go see them now.
So back then it was like $25 was an expensive concert, and now it's like, oh, here, give us $175. Yeah, you can sit in the nosebleed section for that much.
Right, but I promised them that we were going to see Motley Crue this year for the final tour. Alice Cooper's going to be there too, so that'd be cool. And my wife wants to see Bruno Mars, so I think we're going to try to pull that one off.
I was extremely impressed with the Bruno Mars presentation at the Super Bowl. It changed my mind. You know, I was not a Bruno Mars fan before seeing that performance, and then they really kind of blew me away.
Yeah, he was awesome. And we also went downtown to see Once, the off-Broadway version of Once, from the movie.
Cool.
Not what I expected, because that's like one of my favorite films. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have not.
Oh, it's really good. Lots of great music and stuff. But the show, the Broadway show, was just, it was a lot different than the movie. It only had one set. The entire show was one set. And like they would use like lights and like they would only spotlight, you know, part of the floor to pretend like they were in a different place. It was really cheap.
So it's just redressing the set and relighting and as many different kind of shots and angles as you could get out of just the one space, right?
Right. I mean, the one impressive thing was that they did sing and play their own instruments. But other than that, yeah, I wasn't too impressed. A little disappointed. But
well, at least we weren't disappointed by Series 2 of Red Dwarf.
Yay.
This still falls into my wheelhouse as some of my favorite episodes of Red Dwarf here. I certainly like the first season, but now after watching the second season, I want to see if you noticed this too. But I think they got the color right finally.
Yeah, it does look a little different.
The reds are very red.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as the stories go, we'll get into each one in a few minutes, but like in the first one, I had one story where I was just kind of like, 5 out of 6 isn't bad. I can't pick a bad story out of this season.
Yeah, I can't pick a bad one either, but I've been having a hard time like ranking them as far as which ones are my favorite. And I definitely have a least favorite, but it's not a bad episode by any means.
All right, well, let's get started with Series 2 and Crichton.
Just don't put me down when we meet them.
Okay, what do you want me to say? How do you want me to act?
I don't know, just act with respect. For a start, don't call me Rimmer.
Why not?
Because you always put the emphasis on rim in Rimmer. Makes me sound like a lavatory disinfectant.
Well, what do you want me to call you, Rimmer?
I don't know, Arnie, Arn, something a little bit more, I don't know, how about Big Man?
Big man.
Or what about the nickname I had at school?
What, Bonehead?
How did you know my nickname was Bonehead?
I was only guessing.
I didn't mean that. I meant the other one.
What other one?
Ace.
Get out of town. Your nickname was never Ace. Maybe Ace Hole.
Which aired September 6, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and was produced and directed by Ed Bye. The crew are finally able to leave Red Dwarf and attempt to rescue the crew of the Crash Nova 5. Instead, they find one highly neurotic, robotic neat freak who becomes subject to Rimmer's every whim. So this episode introduces us to the fourth major character of the series, but he doesn't return for another year, and a different actor. Crichton is portrayed by David Ross, who doesn't do a bad job, but after you see Robert Llewellyn play the role starting in Series 3, there's no other Crichton but him. I like David Ross as Crichton the first few times I saw it, but going back and watching him later on after I'm used to Robert Llewellyn, I can't help but try to like mentally fit him into that episode.
Yeah, we can tell that the character has developed significantly by the time we get to series 3 also. So, there's a little bit more solid Crichton moving forward after this episode. So this one, yeah, he's an incidental character, but it's cool because we don't get many incidental characters in the show. It's usually just our ensemble cast. So in series 2 now, we also have the restrictions on Rimmer's abilities seem to be less restricting. He's able to move around. He actually leaves the ship in this episode. And they don't talk about that at all. So, except for us sci-fi geeks, no one questions it because, hey, he's just this bloke that's going to leave the ship, and we don't think about it. Later on, they actually get into the mobile emitter and hard light and all that kind of stuff. I noticed that, but it doesn't take away from the story by any means. It's good that he's there and he's still a pansy and afraid of everything.
That brings up a couple of changes from the first series to the second series. First of all, the credits are in red instead of white, which that's a little different. But Alan Yentob, I think he was the head of BBC programming at that time, and he wanted the Red Dwarf crew to be able to visit planets and get out of the ship. So this year they created a shuttle called Blue Midget.
That's not the Starbug? Well, I know it doesn't look like Starbug, but
it's Blue Midget to start with, and later on, I think it's Series 3. I can't remember, but later on they have Starbug, which is bigger and greener.
And they have 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is Blue Midget ever actually named in the series? Because I don't remember actually seeing that name or hearing them say that.
That's the name that I've seen. It may be on the VHS boxes. It's definitely in everything I've ever read about Red Dwarf, but I really don't remember them actually saying that in the show.
Yeah, I tend to take what's on screen as the actual stuff. And yeah, there's plenty of source material out there that I have not read. And that just shows everyone listening, I am not a professional broadcaster. I'm just this dude in my living room talking about a show that I really love. So I am doing it because I love it. And we're doing this show because we want to introduce people to our love of Red Dwarf. And if someone listens to an episode and hears what we're talking about and it makes them interested to want to watch the show, then great, we've done our job.
And, we try to do this show from a perspective of people that are possibly getting into it. But you and I have been watching this show for years. I know I've been watching it since, oh, good Lord, like the early 90s. So at least 20 years.
Yeah, we're pushing that with me too. So I definitely was exposed to it around the same time, and maybe haven't been watching it every day since, but still very interested.
So what was your favorite scene or line or both out of this one?
I picked one, but I'm going to change it right now because I really like the bit about the dog's milk.
Hope they got some spare odds and sods on board. We're a bit short on a few supplies.
Like what?
Cow's milk. Ran out of that yonks ago. Fresh and dehydrated.
What kind of milk are we using now?
Emergency backup supply. We're on the dog's milk.
Dog's milk?
Nothing wrong with dog's milk. Full of goodness, full of vitamins, full of marrowbone jelly. Lasts longer than any other type of milk, dog's milk.
Why?
No bugger to drink it. Plus, of course, the advantage of dog's milk is that when it goes off, it tastes exactly the same as when it's fresh.
Why didn't you tell me, Holly?
What, and spoil your tea?
My favorite scene was was 2 scenes, so I can't really decide. They kind of go together, but the first one was Lister when he's getting ready, and they're playing the music, and he's all dancing around and putting on his shirt, and he puts on his pants, and there's a big hole in the back.
Through the hole, yeah. He was ironing his pants, and there's a big iron hole right where his butt is, so he has to cover it with, is that shoe polish or just spray paint?
I assumed it was spray paint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And since it was black pants, he had black spray paint and kind of sprayed it on there. It was funny.
I definitely noticed that scene and was thinking about it, but then I was like, I'm a podcaster and I need to think of things that will appeal audio-wise, and that one doesn't really have anything. It's all a visual gag, but, right on. I'm glad that you picked that one because it's totally a noteworthy scene.
Yeah, and hammering out his socks and all this kind of stuff, which I have boys, so I know all about that. And then, like, not too long after that, they actually go down and meet the girls. They're all excited, and they're all dead.
Yep, they spend more time getting ready than they actually do spend time on the Nova 5, interacting with Crichton and the corpses of these 3 hot chicks that they're hoping to score with.
And that brings up my best line, which was Crichton when he says,
Well, I was only away 2 minutes.
Let's go. There's one more other thing that I noticed in here. It's an edit, but they left, the visual in there, and you could read his lips and tell what he said. And it's Rimmer talking about, I forgot what the line was, but he was making a joke where he says chicken nugget. But if you look at his lips, he actually says chicken McNugget.
Oh, okay. I hadn't noticed that. That's cool.
Yeah, and you hear where they cut out the Mick part because they didn't want to get sued by McDonald's, I guess.
They have less meat on them than a chicken McNugget.
Yeah.
That was always a big joke here in the States because there's about maybe 5-10 years ago, McDonald's decided to make the chicken nuggets all white meat chicken, and it made you ask, what was in there before? Which obviously other people have been asking for a long time.
It'd be interesting to know if that's cut out in the UK version.
Oh, right. So, UK listeners, please tell us, does he say chicken McNugget? We'd love to hear.
I would think so because, they have McDonald's over there too, so it probably is cut out.
Speaking of UK listeners, we've had interaction with the boys from Introcast and from Scuttercast, so we'll be playing promos for both of those shows during this episode. I would encourage everyone who wants a more in-depth look at particular episodes of Red Dwarf to go and listen to these guys because they have a little bit more focused format than we do. And if we wet your palate at all with talking about any one particular episode, go and find the particular episode of Introcast that gets in depth about those particular episodes of Red Dwarf.
Definitely. Really good stuff.
Up next, Better Than Life.
Good evening. Here is the news on Friday, the 27th of Geldorf. Archaeologists near Mount Sinai have discovered what is believed to be a missing page from the Bible. The page is presently being carbon dated in Bonn. If genuine, it belongs at the beginning of the Bible and is believed to read, "To my darling Candy, all characters portrayed within this book are fictitious and any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. The page has been universally condemned by church leaders."
Which aired September 13th, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor and directed by Ed Bye. The crew discovers a video game where all their innermost dreams and fantasies come true. So why is it all going horribly wrong for Rimmer? Rimmer starts out pretty well with this one, actually. He gives himself a car and Magruder, and he's got his Admiral bars on, and all the officers laugh at his horrible jokes that are not even set up, and for some reason it all goes south, and the program, I think that the program would have enough AI to filter out all of the bad things that you might be imagining, but that wouldn't be funny. That wouldn't be funny for our show.
Yeah, I think it just kind of shows that Rimmer is sort of self-destructive.
Here's another prophetic thing that happens in Red Dwarf. I don't know if you've seen these robot-human analogs that are around these days, where it's basically like a video screen that drives around, and if you can't be someplace, you can webcast into this computer robot thing and be actually on site. Like, say if you're homesick from work, you can have your little mobile robot thing drive around the office and do your job and interact with the other employees. And it's your, remote presence in any location. And our boy Holly has that starting here in series 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty neat. I like that. That's another prophetic sci-fi thing that happens in Red Dwarf. And of course, they're going into a virtual reality video game.
Yeah, his little cart that he goes around on reminds me of like when you're in school and you're like, all right, kids, today we're going to watch a video. And everybody's like, yay. And they wheel in the TV on the big cart.
Totally. And then the teacher never knows how to set up the connections properly to make it actually work.
Exactly. We watched, I remember one year, I think it was in the 9th grade, we watched Zeffirelli's version of Romeo and Juliet. And there's a scene in there where somebody gets naked.
Yep, it's Juliet. I too watched that in 9th grade. I believe it was in French class. I have no idea why it was in French class, but there was, the scene where the teacher frantically ran across the screen or ran across the room and put her folder up in front of the screen for that moment. That made me just want to go to the video store and rent the video that much more.
Yeah, and I did. But in our class, the teacher goes over and she knew it was coming. And she said, okay, hang on just a minute. She turned the entire television around and then turned it back. But good times. I used to get this episode and the next one mixed up because they both deal with sympathy for Rimmer. And they both have a scene in the observation deck, which also includes the same music.
The observation deck is a really cool set, and it's not that they use the set in any particular way, but it's a really cool model shot to set up what they're doing. And then it's also, if I had a spaceship, I would want an observation deck. I would want to go someplace outside the ship so I could look off into space and be safe doing it. So it's a cool thing that it's there.
Yeah, and it's I think this is the only 2 times that they show it is during series 2. But speaking about the music, I love the music in those scenes, and it's Howard Goodall, which I don't think we mentioned him last episode, but he is an awesome composer for this show.
Yeah, it's very moody in those particular scenes because every time Rimmers goes up to the observation deck, he's lamenting about something, whether it be his father passing away, even though everybody's already been dead for millions of years. Yeah. And the next one, he's lamenting over Lisa. Or just not having Lisa yet. I don't remember which order they came in. Yeah. It's his lament and then actually transferring the memories. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah. Well, but that leads me to my favorite scene of this one, which is it's in the observation deck where Rimmer and Lister have their first heart-to-heart about Rimmer's dad.
And it's a big reveal because you all think that he's all broken up about his father because he has great feelings for him, but really he's upset that his father passed away because he never got the chance to tell him off. Yeah. Horrific, his father stretching he and his 3 brothers to make sure that everyone was tall enough to get into the Space Corps.
That was my favorite scene. That's the one I remember. I mean, it wasn't the funniest, but that's the one that I remember every time I think about this episode. But speaking of Rimmer's dad, Doctor Who fans will recognize Toby Haydock's favorite actor, John Abernethy, playing the part of Rimmer's father. He was in several Doctor Who stories, Power of Kroll, The Ambassadors of Death, Fury from the Deep, and Death to the Daleks.
My favorite scene from Better Than Life is where Lister and the cat are playing golf. And, they're trying to relax and have a good time. And the cat just thinks that Dave is an idiot because he doesn't know how to play golf right by planting his egg and then chucking the golf club and spinning around and hopping on one foot and everything like that. It just shows that given the same implements, people could come up with whatever kind of game they wanted. Calvin Ball comes to mind.
Yeah, and walking by Marilyn Monroe.
How's about a little bit of ooby-dooby-doo? How's about a little bit of ooby-dooby-don't?
And she's all upset because he's not going to lay pipe. Poor Marilyn.
Next up, thanks for the memory.
I'll give us something to eat.
You what? I'm jiggered, man.
Oh, come on, you don't sleep.
Of course I do. I've got to offline. I can't keep up my full tilt, full power, red hot maximum pace all the time. I've got to take the odd breather, haven't I?
I want a triple fried egg sandwich with
chili sauce and chutney.
You what?
It's a state of the art, Sarnie.
It's the state of the floor I'm worried about.
Which aired September 20th, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and directed by Ed Bye. Feeling extremely sorry for Rimmer, Lister finds a way to give Rimmer 8 months of his memory of his favorite girlfriend as a gift. I was saying before, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite episode of Series 2 because they're all so original and good, but I think this one has to be my favorite of this season. And I think it's because we get to see a little of the companionship between Lister and Rimmer in the last episode, but in this one we actually see Lister making an actual effort to do something really kind for Rimmer by making it possible for him to experience real love for the first time, but of course it all goes horribly wrong.
Because Rimmer just can't let anything good happen to him.
Right.
He couldn't go with it and accept that these things might not actually be real.
Yeah. And I also love the concept of waking up and all these things have happened, and you have to watch the whole episode to figure out how each one of those things happen. It's become a little old hat lately with the J.J. Abrams style of storytelling on TV, where we start out with the climax of the story and then stop and say 48 hours earlier. But
yeah, but at the time when we first saw this, there was definitely a good mystery going on there, and it was fun to put all the pieces together.
Exactly, just like the pieces of the puzzle on the table. But
so it was cool to see the crew let their hair down a little bit, go and party on that asteroid moon. And they even had Rimmer's holographic cage that they had to set up so that he could actually be there too. And it's kind of cool that he can eat and drink holographic, food and beer. But we also get into a big sci-fi kind of topic here where they're implanting memories and how easy it is for Dave with his two-finger typing to extract his own memories and copy and paste them into Rimmer's memory. That's pretty neat. So, there's the future, ladies and gentlemen, the future.
Exactly. That's my funniest scene, actually, is Lister is saying, okay, I need to copy my entire memory, and it takes like 5 seconds. Okay, we're done.
And then they have the chili chutney sandwich conversation, which I just think is brilliant because he's right. All of the pieces don't go together, but you've had dinner like that before where you just think all the ingredients are not going to go together, but they blend and mix together perfectly. And in Rimmer's case, it's hangover food. It's the kind of food that you want to eat, the night before while you're drinking so that when you wake up the next day, you don't feel quite so bad.
I could never invent a sandwich like this, Lister. You see, all the ingredients are wrong. The fried eggs, wrong. The chutney, wrong. The chili sauce, all wrong. But put them together, and somehow it works. It becomes right. It's you. This sandwich, Lister, is you.
Yeah, and eat it before the bread dissolves.
My favorite line from this one has to do with the birthday cake that Lister makes. It's in the shape of a wrench because he's a technician, and Holly's line is,
Gordon Bennett's lucky he's not a gynecologist.
So we'll just leave that one out for the audience to assume what the cake might be shaped like.
Right. That was a good one. I had a couple other notes, not a big deal, but just things that I wrote down in my notes. One was, like you said earlier, the Death Day celebration where they were dancing around on the planet and pretending to play guitar until he walked over and turned off the machine. And there is a girl in the audience that squeaked every time she laughed. Did you notice that?
Yeah, there was a very distinct laugh at certain points. I recognized that also. That was pretty cool. Up next, Stasis Leak.
Why do women always leave me for total smegheads? Why do they dump me for men who wear turtleneck sweaters and smoke a pipe? I mean, natural yogurt eaters. Reliable, sensible, dependable, and lots of other words that end in ibble. But he's obsessed with house prices and spends half his life in antique fairs looking for bargains and drinking wine. It's never beer, is it? It's always wine. What do you want on your cornflakes, darling? Oh, I'll have some wine, please. Smack!
Which aired September 27th, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and directed by Ed Bye. There's a stasis leak on level 16, which enables the crew to go back to their time on the ship 3 million years ago. Will Rimmer be able to save his own life? Will Lister be able to bring back Kachansky? Will the cat ever figure out what the hell is going on? who knows? This one's cool. I really like this one a lot. It's not my favorite, but definitely my second favorite, mostly because it has the rest of the cast in there. We get some more insight into the rest of the crew, especially Peterson and Captain Hollister. So I'm a big fan of this one, especially the scene with the chicken outfit.
Yeah, that's a good one. The captain's dressed up as a chicken and comes in there, and Rimmer thinks he's hallucinating and insults him and throws stuff in his face, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, we also have a reference here to just how big the Red Dwarf spaceship is, because they're going to descend 2,567 floors from wherever they live down to floor 16. So that means there's at least 16 more floors, if not more. So it's a pretty darn big ship. That's like 30 skyscrapers kind of jammed together, probably.
Yeah, you were talking about Peterson. As we were watching this, my son happened to walk in and watch this one with me, and they got to Peterson, and I paused it right on his face, and I was like, "Do you know who that is?" He's like, "No." And then I told him what we were talking about in the last episode about how he was in Harry Potter and he was Rory's dad, and he was like, "What?"
It's a great use of him in the younger days is what I'm trying to say. Older for us now, but younger days. So it's cool to see his addition to the show at this time, especially carrying the most beautiful lady's luggage.
He's watched these with me past couple of days, and he asked me about the scene at the end of this episode where Kochanski tells Lister that 3 years from now this will happen, and 5 years from now that will happen. So he was like, "So do these things happen in later seasons?" And I was like, "No, they don't," which is another example of how, unimportant continuity is regarded on this show. But it doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's a comedy, so that kind of stuff doesn't bother me.
And this is actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last time we get this Kochanski. But I have to, we have to move forward and see what else is going to happen in the series too, because my memory is cheating here at this point, unfortunately.
I think she does appear one more time, either in 3 or 4.
Huh? I have something to look forward to then.
Yeah. My favorite line in this one, it's a scene and a line, but it's where it's the second time that they come through the stasis into the showers, and they walk in, and this guy's standing there naked taking a shower, and Lister moves on, and the cat stands there and stares at him and says, "Don't worry, buddy, it's the personality that counts."
Definitely, that was a great scene. That made my girlfriend laugh, so I was happy that we were watching that. I'm having a hard time picking a favorite from this because there's so many good lines, but I really like the very beginning of the episode where Rimmer is talking to the captain about how Dave dosed him with the hallucinogenic mushrooms, and the way that he puts it, how he has a voyage to Trip Out City. That's a nice line. I like that one. But I guess if we were really going to pull one, it's going to be this next line where Lister is giving an assessment of the sort of man that might marry Kochanski. And he's talking about men and how they like wine. And I hate, all the stuff about wine. So that's fun. So there's a little bit of time travel here. We have a little bit more look into the future of our society, because it looks like humans have populated Jupiter well enough to have a hotel, Ganymede. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy to see that. And it's fun to think that these things could have happened or might have happened. But as the series moves forward, they don't particularly happen the way that we remember them in this episode.
No. All right. Next up, Queeg.
Queeg?
Who's Queeg?
I am Queeg 500, the Red Dwarf backup computer. All vessels of the Jupiter Mining Corporation fleet are obliged to carry a backup computer to replace the primary computer.
Hang on, you can't do this. Holly's got an IQ of 6,000.
Yeah, right on.
Is that what he told you?
Well, what is it then?
It has a 6 in it, but it's not 6,000.
What is it?
6.
Which aired October 4th, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and directed by Ed By. Holly is utterly useless and is replaced by a hardcore, militaristic, by-the-book computer overlord. Now, last episode I mentioned Christopher Barry's talent for impersonating each member of the cast, which he does a few times throughout the whole series, but He does it for the first time in this episode when his hologram is malfunctioning because of a mistake by Holly.
I've got it in hand. No panic.
No panic, everyone. I've got it in hand.
Just need to override the charge relays.
Just need to override the charge relays.
But how'd you do that, Hall? Bypass
the main circuit. That ring of switches over there.
Bypass the main circuit. That ring of switches over there.
What, this one over here? This one over here?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
Now press the bypass.
Now press the bypass.
Ah! That was horrible. I never want to go through that again. Hey! That was me!
And then there's the great pyrotechnics that come along with that scene, too, because he tells Dave to plug the red cable into the yellow cable or the white cable or whichever one it is. And Dave goes flying through the air in a spectacular explosion.
Yeah, kind of. But it's
completely not useful to the plot in any way. But, it was fun to see them try to, put some special effects together, too.
My favorite scene of this one, I'll go ahead and tell you, because it's right around this time. Right at the beginning, they're going along, and Holly's like, hey, guys, what's happening, dudes? Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. And all of a sudden, bam! And they all fall down, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's it. A meteor is about to hit the ship.
He's egging them on right from the beginning. I think he's like playing up on the being pathetic thing just so he can set up his joke. Which I gotta say, this episode out of the 6, this is my favorite from this season, simply because of all of the stuff that they have to run through. And then the payoff at the end where we find out that, yes, in fact, it's been Holly all the time, just playing a joke on them.
What did you think of Charles Augins, the guy that played Queeg?
There are a few times where you can tell that he is Holly, I think, but otherwise he's great. He's authoritative, and he knows how to talk to the crew, and he knows how to manipulate the crew to get what he wants at the same time. Because, they all have these arrangements with Holly in order to, live the way that they want to live, but Queeg will have none of it. The cat has to work, and he complains about the gloves that he has to wear because they don't match the suit. And I even found Holly says "don't panic" in there, so you can dig that one out yourself if you like, listeners. That one will be fun. We might throw that in every once in a while when we want to make a Hitchhiker's Guide kind of reference. There's one other little bit that's fun in here where it's talking about the smart shoes.
My mate Peterson once bought a pair of shoes with artificial intelligence. Smart shoes, they were called. It was a neat idea. No matter how blind drunk you were, they could always get you home. But he got ratted one night in Oslo and woke up the next morning in Burma. See, the shoes got bored just going from his local to the flat. He wanted to see the world, He had a hell of a job getting rid of them. No matter who he sold them to, they'd show up again the next day. He tried to shut them out, but they'd just kick the door down,
Is this true?
Yeah. Last thing he heard, they'd sort of robbed a car and drove it into a canal. They couldn't steer, you see.
Really?
Yeah, Peterson was really, really blown away about it. He went to see a priest. The priest told him, he said it was all right and all that, and the shoes were happy and that they'd gone to heaven. You see, it turns out shoes have souls.
And it's kind of fun. I like that. And, you could imagine these days GPS being built into shoes and then giving them some, talking back ability. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, didn't you post a...
Yeah, I reposted
a link.
Scuttercast put up a thing about that, and it's just like, okay, here's a little teaser for Series 2. We're going to talk about smart shoes. So here we are talking about smart shoes. Yeah, this is my favorite from this season, but it's very closely followed by the next episode. And our last episode of this series is Parallel Universe.
The Earl of Sandwich invented the sandwich. Samuel Morse invented the Morse code. Plato invented the plate. And now I, Holly, have invented the Hollyhop Drive. The Hollyhop Drive can transfer any object instantly to any other point in space.
What? You mean we could go back to Earth?
In a matter of seconds.
Which aired October 11th, 1988, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor and directed by Ed Bye. Deb Lister, Arlene Rimmer, and Dog cross over into a parallel universe where they meet a strange trio of alter egos named Dave Lister, Arnold Rimmer, and Kat. And this one's a lot of fun because we had Holly setting us up the last time as being an idiot, and now he comes out with the Holly Hop Drive. And it's basically a box that says Holly Hop Drive with a red button and a green button, a start and stop. and it's just like, wow, that's incredible. That's amazing. What does it do? And, of course, the first scene of this particular episode is where we get the name for our podcast, because we get the first instance of the Tongue-Tied song.
Exactly. Of all my Red Dwarf videotapes that I used to watch over and over and over, there were probably 2 sections of videotape that I watched and rewatched so many times that I'm surprised they didn't break. One was the very end of Series 6, which we'll get to in June, so no spoilers there. But the other was the very beginning of this episode where we get the musical opener of Tongue-Tied. And I was so excited when this was released later on as an uninterrupted video. Because it's just so damn catchy, and it stays in your head for days, and it never gets old.
And it obviously had enough influence on us that we wanted to name our podcast after that particular scene, so that's cool.
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of that. It's cool that they marketed it a little bit better and turned it into a pop hit that does 2 things. It makes some money for them by selling records, but at the same time, it exposes maybe a larger population to the world of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, I forgot that they released that as a single.
Yeah, there's some nice, clean, very well recorded versions of it out there. So I would encourage people to go and listen to those, purchase that. I'm sure it's on iTunes, and check that out. We do have another Doctor Who crossover in this episode. Did you catch it?
I sure did.
All right, so Brigadier Winifred Bambera is playing Deb Lister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's fun. That's a character from Battlefield. It's the other Brigadier in one of the Sylvester McCoy episodes.
Angela Bruce is her name.
So I picked my favorite scene for this one being the tongue-tied bit. What did you pick?
Where the cat meets the dog.
Everything between the two of them is just gold as far as I'm concerned. Even like they're in the disco and dancing and eating and stuff like that, and they just have such a polar opposite personality. And he even acts like a dog. It's like, that's a strange looking dog. I want to be your friend.
Yeah, he's like, all right, well, he's talking to Lister. He's like, you got a female opposite? You got a female opposite? Where's mine? Woo! And he leaves the room, and they're like, Deb Lister says, he's not going to like this. His female opposite is a dog. He gets down and meets a dog. That was just funny. And, like you were saying, on the dance floor where they speed it up and the cat's like jumping up in the air and hanging from the disco ball. And then the dog just goes out there and jumps up and down and howls a couple of times and he's done.
Totally like metal, like headbanger kind of dance that he does there. That's really cool. And it's so much fun. And of course, now we get into another one of our big sci-fi tropes here, because Deb and Dave have sex, and it turns out that Dave could be pregnant. And that's how we kind of end the series, like what's going to happen.
Well, if you'll remember last season, the second episode was Future Echoes. And at the very end, Lister shows up in a future echo, and he's got 2 kids, Jim and Bexley, and they take a picture. And you're like, where did that come from? This is where that came from. That's pretty cool that they followed that up.
It is followed up, and it will be further explained at the very beginning of Series 3 if you go really, really slow through the ultimate crawl that happens there.
Yeah, you have to slow that down.
But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
All right, what's happening, dudes?
All right, so that's it for Series 2. Series 1 and 2 were a lot alike, and there are a lot of changes that happen in Series 3 that alter the show quite a bit. After Series 2, the show becomes more about the situations that the crew are in and action, and less about character moments and stories and anecdotes, which really set Series 1 and 2 apart from the rest of the series. Not to jump ahead, but they tried to get back to that in Series 8, but it didn't work as well for me. And I also wanted to bring up how great the model work is on this show and how fantastic the special effects are. I mean, you can tell they really made the absolute best of what was probably a small budget.
And did you think they reshot all of the spaceship scenes with better color, or do you think they just processed the film better and made the color stand out a little bit better?
I'm not sure, but I mean, even Series 1, I thought that the model work was fantastic.
Yeah, I like the models. The models are fun. And they don't try too hard either. They're not making the ship do a bunch of crazy stuff. They're just going for it. You know, they just do some flybys and passes. And yeah, you can tell that it's probably 4 feet long, and has a bunch of stuff kind of just glued on everywhere. But it's a nice ship. I'd like to live on that ship. It'd be a lot of fun. Cool. Go and find Jupiter and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Do you think that Series 1 and 2 are sort of set apart from the rest of the series that are coming later?
Very much so, because we're going to get a little bit more formulaic moving forward. You know, it seems like some of those future episodes, they have the same jokes retold in every episode, sort of. Like, you always are going to have certain things, and we'll probably spend some time pointing that out in the next few series. You know, we're going to have the same joke every time, the Space Corps directives and the shape of Crichton's head and things like that will be rehashed time and again in order to try to give the fans some continuity in what they're experiencing, I think. But these 12 episodes are very creative. They're very different from anything that we've seen so far, and a lot of fun. So I hope that this encourages people to go and watch Red Dwarf if they hadn't already seen any episodes, and maybe they can pick out an episode that they liked our descriptions of and go and dig in a little bit deeper.
Shane, I've done it.
Again, Paul? Then open the window. There's no need to announce it.
No, not that. I've invented a machine that can erase our memory of Red Dwarf so we can watch it for the first time. Again.
Really? Is it safe?
Completely. Although you might also forget how to read, write, and do math.
I'm a politician. I don't need any of that.
Also, it would probably make your head explode.
And ruin my hair? No. Let's just find a lovely American couple who have barely even heard of Red Dwarf to watch the show with us. That'll be the next best thing to seeing it for the first time.
Hi, I'm Angela. This is my husband, Heath.
What are you doing in my house?
Well, we're just your everyday American couple wandering about looking for someone who feels like watching a show we've barely even heard of with us.
Maybe we're recording a podcast about it.
That's really convenient.
And you can listen in on the fun with the Red Dwarf Intro Cast.
Check us out on iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter.
Thanks to Jonathan for writing in. Please let us know what you thought of our Series 2 episode, and I'd encourage anyone else to write in if they like. You can contact me at paultowsley@gmail.com, or you can write the podcast at tonguetiedpodcast@yahoo.com. Of course, my website where we're hosting the podcast is paultowsley.com, and you can find us on iTunes.
Coming up next month, a new member of the crew is reintroduced. An entire episode is backwards, and Lister gives Hitler the finger. Say goodbye, Paul.
Goodbye, Paul.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. Red Dwarf, the song Tongue Tied, and all associated material are trademarks of Grant Naylor Productions. No infringement is intended. You can email the podcast at tonguetiedpodcast@yahoo.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tonguetiedpodcast. And follow us on Twitter at tonguetiedpod. For the boys from the Dwarf, this is Paul Towsley saying,
Gadurble, diggle, doggle, niggle, foggle, nibble, nay. I'm trying to say I'm tongue-tied, tongue-tied, whenever you are near me. I'm mummy, 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 whenever you're...
What is it?
It's a rent in the space-time continuum.
What is it? A stasis room freezes time, it makes time stand still. So whenever you have a leak, it must preserve whatever it's leaked into, and it's leaked into this room. What is it?
It's a singularity, a point in the universe where the normal laws of space and time don't apply.
What is it? Time into the past. Oh, a magic door! Well, why didn't you say?
So what's happened?
Well, somehow, don't ask me how, we've jumped into a parallel universe. We've entered the 5th dimension.
What's the 5th dimension?
Didn't they get to number 6 with Baby I Want Your Love thing?
When I saw you for the first time, my knees began to quiver. me, tight tongue, tight tongue, tight tongue, tight tongue. Whenever you're in town, you make me feel a clown, girl. Yes, you make me tongue, tongue, tight, tight, tongue, tight. Why can't I tell you clearly, tight, tight, tongue, 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 tight, tongue, tight. Whenever you're around, I saw you cross the dance floor, dancing. I thought of birds and bees, baby. But when I tried to speak to you, talk, my tongue unraveled to my knees. I tried to say I love you, but it came out kind of wrong, girl. It sounded like nobody do. Tongue tied, money, long, girl. That's how you make me tongue tied, tongue tied. Whenever you are near me, I'm money, 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 whenever you're in town, my trousers they go brown, girl. Yes, you make me nangy, 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 tongue tied. Why can't I tell you clearly? Dobby durgle, tongue tied, whenever you're around. Oh, I'm begging on my knees. Sweet, sweet darling, listen please. Understand me when I say the derble, diggle, doggle, niggle, foggle, nibble, nay. I'm trying to say I'm tongue-tied, tongue-tied. Whenever you are near me, I'm mummy, 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 mummy. Whenever you're in town, I feel so much I'm drowned, girl. Yes, you make me nongy, nangy, nangy, nongy, nongy. Why can't I tell you clearly? We dobby durgle, durgle, dobby, durgle, dobby. Whenever you're around, whenever you're around, girl.
ROCpodcasts.com.